Welcome in, everybody, to the NFL Week 3 preview show with Uncle Phil and Smooth Andy. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this Tuesday evening. Smooth Andy, Uncle Phil, how you guys doing?
Good. I think Smooth Andy's doing better than I am. Licking my wounds. Had first shellacking this past weekend. Smooth Andy, dogs paid off for you.
Yeah, I had a rough Saturday, but I had a good Sunday and Monday, so it all more or less evens out. But
Yeah,
would have been a lot better if I hadn't gone in the tank so bad on Saturday. It was really disappointing. So hopefully we'll do better.
Yep, that's all right. That's all right. Hey, whenever you can get it back on Sunday is a good day.
Yep. All right, are you ready?
Yeah, I think so, man. Some things that before we jumped in, kind of wanted to get your thoughts on things. I've kind of written down some things. It's week 2. Let's overreact, but MVP favorites. I've got 5 down. Wanted to see which one of the 5 are yours so far out of week 2. I've got Baker, Kyler, Derek Carr, Sam Darnold, and Josh Allen. Not exactly who we thought would be on the top of the list right now, but week 2, why not? Out of those 5, any of those guys excite you? I mean, I realize the season's not even a fraction of being started, but those 2 seem to have those 5 seem to have the early jump, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, you don't play fantasy, but I do, and I got 3 quarterbacks, 2 starters, and a guy to just sit on the bench in case somebody got hurt or there's a bye week. And I thought I did really well, and I got Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, and Matthew Stafford, and all 3 of them have just been stinking up the house the first.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I mean, Dak was runner-up for MVP last year. I thought I had a pretty good group there. You're right. These relatively unexpectedly good quarterbacks in this group, other than Josh Allen. I guess you probably have to look at Derek Carr, although, Kamara got 4 touchdowns on the ground, so he might have had 1 in the air. I can't remember, but maybe I haven't really looked at their comparative numbers, but I'd probably put up Derek Carr. Yeah, would probably be my choice out of that group right now.
Yeah, it's a good choice. I'm going to go with Kyler.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Kyler.
He was great.
He's still the forgotten about player in the NFL. I mean, it's bottom 10 offense last year without him, top 10 offense last year with him. This year seems like he is focused, and Arizona's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to play Arizona right now. I mean, it is just really, really impressive. I mean, they don't have much of a defensive line, so don't get really of a pass rush unless you're the Rams and they have a depleted offensive line. And so it's a little different there. But interesting to see them go through. I thought it'd be interesting. Also, want to get your thoughts on this. Passing TDs through 2 weeks. 2019, 105. 2020, 110. 2021, 110. 2022, 105. 2023, 86. 2024, 66. What do you think the drop-off is? Is it more of a run-based offense, or what do you think? I mean, I've kind of got –
What was that, touchdown passes in the first 2 weeks?
Touchdown passes first 2 weeks. Dramatic fall-off in the league.
I
mean, over 25%, probably over 30% than average. I mean, that's outside of a statistical anomaly. I mean, it's pretty significant.
Wow, I'd have to give that more thought. I don't know. Nothing comes immediately to mind. I mean, you're right about the running thing, but I mean, why would that happen? I mean, they try to run the ball every year,
Yeah.
I know it's a passing league, but that's a big drop, and I had no idea.
Guys, it just feels like quarterbacks and coaching. Quarterbacks are getting rushed out there more than they have been before and not playing as well. And to that end, look at the rookie quarterbacks this season. Completion percentage of the top of the rookie quarterbacks, 62.8%, passing yards per game, 106.8, TDs, interceptions, 0 TDs, 6 interceptions, passer rating of 64.2. The max on that is 158.3. So we're not getting that, but on the same time, we do have some resurgence between guys we thought were bust. I mean, look at Geno, look at Baker, Sam, and Derek. That class. We thought those guys were not going to make it, and all of a sudden, right environments matter, and you get the right coach. Derek Carr, Clint Kubiak. Now he's fantastic. You've got Sam Darnold now with the KOC. Latal McVay. You got Baker. Liam Cohen stepped in really nice. I mean, Baker's kind of grown up and done his own thing, but Liam Cohen, new offensive coordinator, come in. Has had Kentucky and Rams kind of under McVay tree. Has done well, and obviously Geno Smith is doing fantastic. And doing well for that. But for me, rookie quarterbacks. Two hardest things for them are calling third down protections, getting their team in the right protections, and obviously the red zone, and that's certainly where they're struggling. So, if you're counting on a rookie quarterback for your team to be your year, then it's not your year. Because it's tough in the NFL and it's a different animal. But I just wanted to throw those things out to you. I thought those things were interesting this week to do that before we got into things. But I don't know, just found those things curious as I was kind of researching into this week and wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah. The one thing I can say passing wise is that it seems like the red zone has been it's not normally easy to score in the red zone with a pass, but it seems to have been much harder this year. I mean, you look at the Falcons yesterday; they were kicking field goals all day. And how many field goals? Who was it that had like 7 field goals over the weekend? Was that?
That was the Redskins. I mean, the Commanders.
Yes, you're right.
I don't think they had 7. I think,
and then they had something like that with Pittsburgh too when they beat the Falcons. They had like 6 field goals and won 18 to something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A lot of that, and that might be part of it. I mean, there are a lot of field goals that were being settled for when they used to be throwing touchdowns, and maybe the red zone. Maybe they figured something out in the red zone defense that they haven't not.
Washington was only the second team in since the merger. I think it was since the '78 Rams that scored 3 touchdowns and gave up no touchdowns and still lost. I mean, I've got it written down, but it's over 1,200 games. It's like 1,200 and something and 2 that you score 3 touchdowns and give up none and still lose. So a little oddity, but true. But well, man, let's get to it.
Okay. Starting off Thursday night, New England 1-1 at the New York Jets 1-1. New England coming off a loss to Seattle 23-20. The Jets coming off a win over Tennessee 24-17.
Yeah. Look, I mean, a game I thought that the Jets probably should have lost, right? Should be 0-2. Will Levis is the other team's very best friend. And, New England's scrappy. Again, really impressed how they're playing this year. I'm still going to take the Jets since they're at home. I'll take the Jets minus 6.5. And I'll put a total at, it's maybe high, but I'll put 39.
39 flat?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, the total opened 38.5, still 38.5 last I checked.
That's what I thought.
And the point spread, sorry, I just was trying to check the current point spread. Opened 6.5, still 6.5. I said minus 6 for the Jets, so I was up by 0.5. Okay.
So what was the actual in the Jets?
6.5 is correct.
6.5. So I got that. Okay. So 6.5 and 38.5. All right. Injuries on this one. Defensive end Jermaine Johnson, unfortunately, out for the season, torn Achilles. Makes the Jets pass rush that less formidable. Not that it was formidable to begin with. Their defense isn't playing like Jets defense, but they still don't have Reddick in the building. I mean, that's you got to think that Hassan Reddick is, the Jets got to be talking to him soon. And then you've got New England linebacker Juwan Bentley's out for the year with a torn pec. He is a team captain, really good. Big blow for the Patriots. He had 100 tackles each of the past 3 seasons. So, interesting deal. Both teams having defensive issues, lost key players for the rest of the year. So tough for them. I don't really have a whole lot of faith in the Jets. I feel like they're still a little overvalued. I feel like, Aaron Rodgers still not the elite quarterback he once was. They're really not scheming anything up for him. He's just really coming to the line. He's like the old Aaron. He's coming to the line and he's getting the defense into a play and like about, 3-4 seconds into the play clock before it expires, he's, doing the hero thing. And their offense is very basic because of that. And they're not doing motions. They're not doing a lot of play actions. I mean, it's pretty frustrating watch, the offense to watch for me. The first, just for an example, their very first 3 possessions against Tennessee, those are really the scripted plays. 4 yards and a punt, 7 yards and a punt, and 4 yards and a punt. And again, it's just, growth comes through innovation. I just don't see it with the Jets. I mean, any thoughts on the Jets yourself?
Just, there's still a bit of an enigma to me. I think you're right. I mean, they only gave up 17 points to Tennessee, but I don't feel like their defense is as good as it was last year when that's all they had. They needed to play better defensively in order to have a chance to win. And I think they finished somewhere around 500 last year, right? Like 8-9 or something like that, 7-10, something like that. Not like 3 and something. So even with Zach Wilson in the backfield, they were able to hang into games. Now they get Aaron Rodgers. That's why I think everybody's so bullish on him. And it still doesn't look right yet. But I think you're right. Their defense hasn't played real well the first 2 games. Aaron Rodgers hasn't played too well either. But
there's no creativity in their offense. I mean, last year they were 31st in yards per play, and this year they're just 19th. So they're better, but this is kind of meh. I mean, that's not a team that's going to playoffs. That's not a team. That's not a playoff team. They don't look like a playoff team. Jets fans, I'm sorry, but this is a bad year for you. I feel like the AFC is actually got more openings in playoff teams because I'm not really that impressed with a ton of teams in the AFC. I feel like the NFC has got a lot of teams. I mean, you look at the NFC North, you've got now Minnesota, you've got Detroit, you've got Green Bay. I think Chicago's probably the last place team there. Certainly look like it right now. In the NFC South, it used to be the NFC worst. It was now you've got New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta that are battling for spots. In the NFC West, you've got San Francisco. They'll be back. They're not healthy right now, but they'll be back in the thick of things. You've got Arizona, who's just looks like the team to beat in that division. The Rams. Look, they've just got more people on IR than it's on players. I mean, sometimes they just don't break your way. I remember when Georgia one year was favored to win. It was under Mark Richt, but they were favored to win everything, and they had all these injuries in fall camp before the season started. And I remember my brother telling me, he's like, "Hey, when things like that happen, it's just not your year, and you've got to have things going your way, and especially when it comes to health." And I just don't know that they're going to get people back in time to be relevant. So it could be, but Seattle looks like they're improving each game as well. So I see more teams viable in the NFC for playoffs. I think the NFC is going to be just ridiculous when it comes to playoff run than the AFC. But I don't think the Jets are one of those teams.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. You mentioned the Rams. I'm shocked by how bad they've looked. I know they've lost, Aaron Donald and they've lost some pieces over the last couple of years. They lost Andrew Whitworth, the left tackle. I mean, that was a big guy for them too, even though he played offensive line. And usually people don't pay too much attention to that. But yeah, I'm really surprised that Sean McVay's gone 0-2 to start the year. And that's why I really like them this weekend, by the way. I think they're a frisky dog. Speaking of dogs,
we'll get to them, but let's move on to the next one.
Okay, next one is New York Giants 0-2 at Cleveland 1-1. Giants coming off a loss to Washington 21-18. Cleveland coming off a win over Jacksonville 18-13.
I didn't really do this, but on the last one, but just so you know, on the Jets game, again, just kind of getting a habit more than anything because weather's not a big deal right now, but it'd be remiss if we didn't mention it. On the Jets, 29% chance, slight chance of showers, winds 6 miles an hour from northeast. Giants, Cleveland, a balmy 88% chance of rain, 10 miles an hour from the southeast. My guess on this one, I'm going to say Cleveland. I'm going to say 8.5, and I'll put a total on this one at. I'll put 43.5. Okay,
you missed that one pretty bad. The total, you said 43.5. It's over 38. It's 38.5 now.
38.5.
And the number, you said 8.5. I said 6 to Cleveland, and it opened 6.5, and it was still 6.5 last I checked.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Okay. It's good to see.
I think that's more a statement about Cleveland not being particularly impressive than it is about the Giants.
Yeah, I feel like I would agree. I mean, people still see Cleveland like they did when Dallas shellacked them. Probably not just a really good team, but they are at home. I would imagine that this is a team that pretty embarrassed the way they played to open the season. Probably going to come out pretty fiery against the Giants team that's really not that good. Kind of smoke and mirrors. The Giants. Not surprisingly, did sign a kicker today. Signed Greg Joseph, who was on the practice squad for the Lions. He's a 7-year veteran. Played for the Vikings past 3 seasons. Holds the NFL record for game winners in a season in 5, and holds the Vikings record for the longest field goal, 61. Also led the NFL in touchback percentages in 2021. But it says a lot that he's on the practice squad right now for the Lions. I mean, just if you're not, sometimes kickers just kind of fall off a cliff. So we'll see what his percentage is, but at least that gets them back to having somebody rather than not. We already talked about that. The Giants, somebody already put it up. They were teams that have scored 3 touchdowns and given up none and still lost. They put it in 1,279 to 2. I've got 1,294 to 2, but we're in the same ballpark. So anyway, interesting deal. Not a game that I really particularly care about. If I'm going to make some money on it, I will, but I just – I got to have one team that I trust, and I don't know if I trust either team. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I'm probably going to be taking a pass on that one personally. That doesn't really.
You're driven more by metrics.
Yeah, that's true. I got to find out what the numbers show up later in the week, but but that one doesn't look very likely to cause a lot of contrasting views from the cheap seats, pros and joes and everything. It's probably going to be a pretty milk toast kind of betting, but we'll see. I could be wrong. If we just want to get down to one listener, we can continue to talk about that game. So let's move on. Okay, exactly. All right. Next one is Green Bay 1-1 at Tennessee 0-2. Green Bay coming off the win over Indianapolis 16-10, and Tennessee coming off the loss to the Jets 24-17.
Okay. I'm out of order on that one. Let's see. All right, Green Bay, let's see, 87 degrees in Nashville, 6% chance, slight showers, 6-mile-an-hour winds from the southwest. I'm going to guess that Tennessee Green Bay, interesting, a little bit of a homecoming for Malik Willis, coming back home for the team that traded him to Green Bay. An interesting deal there. Two quarterbacks that are basically unloved. You know, I know Packers fans love Malik Willis, but Tennessee was kind of happy to get rid of him. Let's see. I'm going to say, gosh, what would I say? I would say Vegas is going to say Green Bay 1.5, and I'll say a total here at 38.
Okay. Total, you said 38, opened 36.5 and went to 37. Let me see if it's moved. I finally got this thing to open. Green Bay, Green Bay, Green Bay, Green Bay. There it is. Total is 36.5. That was that, and then the point spread.
Smooth Andy, I think you've frozen up on us. Matt, is he frozen or is that just me?
I think you just froze up. But
just froze up. Okay. Well, we'll
jump down and jump back in.
Yeah. We'll continue digging.
My bad.
Hang on, you froze up. Your
I know.
internet, it's still frozen again. Let me pull it up myself.
Again. Yeah, I just
you froze up. You've been frozen now.
I mean, not on my side. But
you're there now.
Okay.
I think kind of back. You're kind of blurry. Your internet's terrible.
Normally not, but yeah. Okay. Can you hear me okay now?
Now I can. I just looked. Looks like Tennessee's actually favored by 3.
Yeah, it opened 2, but yeah, I had Tennessee 2 as well. I think maybe the one thing you weren't in love. They got through it last week with Malik Willis, but I don't think the odds makers probably are viewing him as a favorite on the road kind of guy yet. So,
well, I mean, obviously it's a huge advantage for Tennessee this weekend, right? They know what Willis does right and what he does wrong. I mean, look, I don't know any other way to say this. They got rid of him because he wasn't very smart, and he couldn't learn the playbook. And they like him. He's very well liked. Unlike Will Levis, who is not well liked, Brian Callahan's a pretty mild-mannered coach, and I think everybody saw him just jump down Will Levis's throat. Felt very reminiscent of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And Will Levis is just not a very liked guy at all. He's not liked in the locker room. Certainly not liked by the coaches. I certainly don't think he'll be in Tennessee next year. So kind of an interesting deal. But I think Tennessee certainly does have the advantage on this one because they do know Malik Willis. And as long as I can't say that Tennessee ever has an advantage when you have Will Levis, but we'll see how that one goes. So I mean, just terrible decision making by Will Levis. I think he might have the worst decision making gene in the entire NFL. He's literally snatched victory from the jaws defeat 2 weeks in a row. I mean, he's the reason they lost both games. and
Yeah.
Tennessee played well enough to win. Everybody was very high on Will Levis after his first NFL start. He threw 4 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions. Since then, it's been 6 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions. He had 0 giveaways in his first NFL start. Since then, he's had 13. So just not great. So really, really tough. Like I said, I've just heard some really bad things about him, but all right. Well, let's move on.
Okay. Next game is Chicago 1-1 at Indianapolis 0-2. Chicago coming off a loss to Houston 19-13. Indianapolis off a loss to Green Bay 16-10.
Okay, obviously that's a dome. No weather there, but I'm just going to say, I'll say give the home team 3, and I'll say a total of 43. You're muted. Now you're frozen.
Red dogs were barking.
Okay.
Let me know when I'm back.
You're frozen.
Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Dude, we're going to have to pay.
I honestly don't know. I've got AT&T fiber. I don't know how to have a faster internet than I have. I just don't know what's going on. Maybe my laptop's not very good after all these years. The total, you said 43. It's 43.5. Went down to 42.5. As for the line, you said -3 Indy. I said -2.5. It opened 1, and it's up to 1.5. So
it's 1.5 Indy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Obviously, Chicago, Keenan Allen is out. Shocking. He's hurt again. I mean, that's what Keenan Allen does, right? Tough thing for Indianapolis. Their run defense got even worse today. And they had to put defensive tackle DeForest Buckner on IR today. Tough loss for Indianapolis. Look, I mean, if you listen to our podcast at all, we talked about this in the preseason. We talked about that Chicago's their main weakness is the offensive line. Certainly looks like it. Not great. You talked about in preseason about how you weren't totally convinced that Shane Steichen was the next the reincarnation of Andy Reid. He just wasn't, and certainly Anthony Richardson hasn't looked the part for me. His timing's off with his wide receivers. His mechanics look bad to me. Indianapolis has given up the most yards rushing 2 weeks in a row to an opponent. So Josh Jacobs last week, obviously Joe Mixon the first week. That defensive line is very sieve-like. They're injured, so it's kind of a tough deal. I'm not sure. Do you see an angle on this one at all?
Well, they're playing Chicago, and they're going to be at home. I don't think they've looked very good. I think you're right about that, but
Yeah.
they lost to Green Bay last week at Lambeau, I guess it was. I don't remember who they lost to in week 1, but I've been very unimpressed with Chicago. I mean, they beat Tennessee in week 1 with that ridiculous performance where they didn't do anything, right? They somehow, because Levis handed it to them. So I think Chicago is every bit an 0-2 team in a 1-1 clothing. So I think I kind of like Indy this week because I think they're going to be desperate. I know it's a little bit overplayed, but I don't I don't see Chicago on the road with a rookie quarterback and think, oh boy, we got a tough one coming up. I think maybe not. Who knows? Maybe Caleb Williams will light it up, but he hasn't looked that great yet. So I'd expect the same.
Yeah, I saw some green shoots. Again for him against Houston. I thought he played better. He started getting the ball out of it a little bit faster. He's still resorting to some of his fallback stuff where he starts to run around, and then when he throws off schedule or throws on the run, that's when he throws interceptions. I mean, it's the NFL. He's going to figure it out. I mean, it's humbling. But the problem is for him is that he has got a defensive head coach, and I just don't think that they can polish out the rough spots like other rookie quarterbacks, like maybe Sean Payton can with Bo Nix. Obviously, he's been terrible too, but good coaching by an offensive head coach, really helps, especially the development. That's my biggest concern. My two biggest concerns coming in to the NFL season with Chicago is the offensive line and a defensive oriented head coach, and not having that. And I'm not convinced that Luke Getsy is this guy that's going to get them, where they're supposed to do. So again, kind of a weird deal, but I'm always eager to see Caleb play because I want to see how he does, but not particularly interested in this game. And one of our listeners says, "Can we chip in to get Smooth some better internet or maybe an Ethernet cable?" So people want to see
technology, but I'm telling you, I've got fiber. I thought that was bulletproof, and I've never really had any trouble working down here. It's just weird when I'm on this particular StreamYard thing. Things just don't seem to work out. But
all right, let's move on.
Next one is Houston 2-0 at Minnesota 2-0. Houston coming off the win over Chicago 19-13. Minnesota coming off the win over San Francisco 23-17.
Yeah. Obviously weather's a dome. So then there, you got Justin Jefferson with a quad injury listed as day-to-day. I think he's probably going to go. Joe Mixon, hurt his ankle. I mean, what's the reason why we put in a hip drop tackle rule and then don't ever call it? Because this is just insane. I mean, it's like, that was a classic. I don't think Jamar Chase's was. I know he griped and complained and cost his team 15 yards, but at the end of the day, it wasn't. It didn't meet any of the criteria required to do hip drop tackle, but this one did, and just wasn't called. Unfortunately, big injury for Houston. Hopefully he can go. Cam Akers is good between the 20s, but inside the 20s, he does like he always does and fumbles. I had Houston the spread for 6.5, and he fumbles inside the 5-yard line and costs me the cover on that game. So, so disappointed, Cam Akers. But he is. But getting to Minnesota, got to be the surprise of the league. We always said that there'd be a team that's our surprise team. It sounds like we've got New Orleans right now is the major surprise, picked to be last in that division, and then you've got Minnesota that's got to be right there as well. So I'm going to guess that I'm going to say Minnesota's favored, but I'll say it's close. I'll say 3. And I'll say a total of, I'll say 47.
Okay. You said 47, total open 45, still 45 last I checked. Okay. You said Minnesota -3. I said Minnesota -2. We both had the wrong team favored. It's Houston -2, and now it's up to 2.5, which I really am surprised by. Minnesota doesn't look very good.
Here's the deal. If Sam Darnold doesn't have anybody to throw to, if you've got Jordan Addison out, you've got TJ Hawkinson out, you've got potentially Justin Jefferson out. If he doesn't have anybody to throw to, I kind of get it. I really couldn't. That being said, really underwhelmed. Bobby Slowick was supposed to be an offensive coordinator for the Texans, was supposed to be this huge get in the offseason. To have him come back, had opportunity for head coaching jobs, or at least interviewed for those. And look, he just looked, it was like they know they have a bad offensive line. It was their same issue. The thing I'm concerned about, CJ Stroud scrambling again, and they can't run the ball. And yet he ran the ball, not every first down, but I think there was one first down where he actually threw the ball. But every time on first down, he just simply lit it on fire. So let's just light first down on fire and only give CJ Stroud 2 downs to get a first down. I'm like, man, what are you doing? And so I was really underimpressed by him. His play calling was just abysmal, but he better get it right this time. Brian Flores has come to play this year. His defensive scheme is outstanding, and gave Brock Purdy fits the entire time. He is going to blitz CJ Stroud that whole game. His blitz percentage is 36%. It's second in the NFL. Leads the NFL in sacks right now, only week 2 with 5. And he also leads the NFL in pressures, 13 as well. Should be a heck of a game. I'm excited about watching this one. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I agree. I think this is a kind of an unexpected marquee game of the weekend. It's not the marquee game necessarily, but it's one of them.
Yep.
Expected this to be happening, but yeah, I think this is going to be fun to watch.
Dude, you're frozen again, killing me. Smooth Andy, you're frozen again. I think you're trying to come back. Smooth Andy, the engineer.
I'm here.
Okay. All right.
You're
back.
Here.
Okay. You're back. Your face is just blurry, but we can hear you at least. What were your thoughts on?
All right. Yeah. I think both of us having Minnesota as the favorite in our heads when we guess lines says something to us, right?
Well, I think it does, but again, I'm just concerned. I think that people think like, hey, you're already out Addison, you're already out Hawkinson, and maybe Jefferson's just a bridge too far, and you can't expect Minnesota to continue to do that. But like I said, Houston just got off a primetime game, so a little bit shorter recovery, and they're traveling. To me, gives Minnesota a little bit of an edge. I certainly like Kevin O'Connell better than I do Bobby Slowick as far as calling plays. But interesting. We'll have to see how that one plays out. But like you said, unexpected primetime game that that we've kind of walked into. So looking forward to that one.
Okay. Next one is Philadelphia 1-1 at New Orleans 2-0. Philadelphia coming off the loss to Atlanta 22-21, and New Orleans coming off the win over Dallas 44-19.
I'm going to go obviously in a dome, no weather. I'll go New Orleans 3.5, and I'll go a total of 49. I mean, how do you not put a total under 60 for the Saints right now?
Yeah, good point. 49 was your guess for the total. It opened 49.5. It's still 49.5. You said New Orleans 3.5. I said New Orleans 2.5. It opened Philly 1.5, and now it's New Orleans 1.5.
Huh.
So it went through the 0.
Interesting. Okay. I still don't know if AJ Brown. I think AJ Brown's going to be out another week. So if he's out, then that's a problem for Philadelphia. You saw their offense was limited. You saw that Jalen Hurts just kind of scrambles. He'll scramble up the middle, scramble up to the right side, really just mainly. Man, I'm kind of enamored right now with New Orleans. Alvin Kamara just looks like a beast right now. He had 180 total yards on Sunday. It was just, I think they're for real. I don't think this is an anomaly. I think this is who they are. I think, again, it's a Shanahan-based offense. You had Clint Kubiak as their passing coordinator. Came from the 49ers and is now their OC, and he's just done magic with this. Their offense is so multiple. They've got got play action. They've got all these different things, and they just ate Dallas alive this weekend. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that was shocking.
Yeah.
And it was a confirmation that I think New Orleans is for real, because the first week they can sneak up on you. Last week they made Dallas look silly.
Yep.
I'm impressed by this. And when is Alvin Kamara going to get old? Hasn't he been in the league for like 10 years? He's a running back.
I thought that, but he looks like he's in his prime now, right? Because he looked unbelievable. Hopefully he'll stay healthy. But talk to me about what you saw last night with Philadelphia. What, if anything, concerns you about Philadelphia?
The offense still looks broken a little bit.
Yeah.
They still, getting Brown back is going to be pretty, pretty helpful. Obviously, but they just, I don't know, maybe they just don't know yet what to do without Fletcher Cox on that's the other thing. The defensive line, the Falcons ran it down their throats, and and what happened to all those Georgia Bulldogs that they drafted that everybody was gushing about them getting, the really, really enormous dude like 3 years ago, Tyler Davis.
Jordan Davis. Yeah.
And then the next year they got the guy who everybody said was the number one overall prospect, but since everybody's going for quarterbacks and everything, they got him in like 10th in the first round, and everybody said, "Oh, it's a steal." Gosh, and those guys just haven't turned into the players they were billed to be. I don't think, at least not yet.
Look, part of it's the defense. They're very young especially on the back end. I don't think they're very good. You saw how porous they were against the Falcons last night. Just marched right down the field. That looked like they were facing Patrick Mahomes. Like he was, and Kirk Cousins is good, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. And that was just kind of an odd looking deal to me, to see them just march down the field. And Kirk Cousins had a completion percentage of 40% against the blitz, and they didn't even blitz him that entire time. When he down the field. So I was like, what are you doing? So part of it, I think, is scheme. Still, do you have the right coordinator? You got Vic Fangio, but he was basically, he's had his day, but I don't think it's 2-day anymore. And he was basically thrown out of Miami. Mike McDaniel couldn't wait to get rid of him. That was the problem with Miami last year, is their defense. I don't see much resolution this year. Philadelphia lost a lot of people in the offseason on defense. Still can't convince me that there's not a huge loss and drop off between Jason Kelce and who's there now as their center, and losing Fletcher Cox. Again, two big voices in the locker room to have that presence. And again, at the end of the game, when the game was on the line, I felt like I've seen that throw before from Jalen Hurts, where he threw that interception. I felt like he's freelancing, and he just threw it up, and just like he did in a game at the end of the game last year, I can't remember who it was against, but he threw it up and threw an interception. And it was like, and it came out later that Nick Sirianni had called a play, and that he's like, "No, I'm going to run my own thing." And he threw something, and it was deep, and it got intercepted. And you're like, this is still chaotic. Nick Sirianni, I put out a tweet first quarter. I was so mad. You're in the first quarter, and you lose the game in the first quarter by turning down and not kicking a field goal there in the first quarter. You go for it on. It wasn't even 3rd and 1, like a tush push. It was like or 4th and 1. It was like a 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, and you run Hurts off to the right side, cut off half the field, and then his tight end Goddard was covered, and you had no options, and it was just a bad call, bad play. I mean, you just don't give away points in the first quarter like that. Just absolutely, just ridiculous. I just don't understand what Philadelphia is doing. They were a bottom 5 defense last year at the end of the season. They're a bottom 5 defense now. I don't think anything's changed. They'll be better on offense, but they're going to have to win in shootouts because that defense, I just don't think can hold up. And the defensive line is good at first, but they just don't have the depth.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Moving on to the next one, we've got another 2-0 versus 2-0. This is the LA Chargers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. LA coming off the win over Carolina 26-3, and Pittsburgh coming off a win over Denver 13-6.
Man, I love this game. Talk about another game that's surprisingly now a primetime game that I can't wait to see. It's in the 1 o'clock slot, which is typically not your primetime games, but I'm excited to see it. Weather 77 degrees, 5% slight chance of thunderstorms, 9 miles an hour southeast. Injuries. Russell Wilson, quote unquote, still not healthy with a calf. I'm sure he's going to remain there till Justin Fields actually screws up and loses a game, and then all of a sudden he'll be healed and then he can play, because right now it's just easier to put him on inactive or put him on as not ready to play yet, so you don't have this quarterback controversy. Mike Tomlin doesn't have to answer that question, but Justin Fields doesn't look like he's going to give up that anytime soon. The other injury of significance is Justin Herbert. He's got a leg injury, and Jim Harbaugh was evasive today. Talked about, you guys will see it on the injury report that comes out Wednesday. So a little bit of disadvantage when we do this on Tuesday nights. We don't really know the full injury reports because they don't come out till Wednesday. You guys, when we're guessing these lines, really this is pre-injury report. Always check the final injury report on Friday. If they didn't practice on Friday, there's about a 99% chance they're not playing the game on Sunday. So make sure and check that, because that certainly affects the way we think about games and feel about them. Obviously that Justin Jefferson line is going to swing pretty dramatically, for instance, if he's able to go. But on this game, I'm going to say Pittsburgh favored by, I'll say 1.5, and I'm going to put a total on this game at 36.
Okay. You said 36. The total opened 37. It's down to 36 now. You said Pittsburgh 1.5. I said Chargers -2.5 because I forgot about Herbert. It wasn't clear to me that he was going to be out for a long time or whether he just had to leave early. It opened Pittsburgh -1.5, which is what you guessed, and it's up to 2.5. So I'm guessing these lines are suggesting that Herbert probably is unlikely to play this weekend, or at least that's what I'm reading into.
Obviously, if that's the case, big break for the Steelers. They're certainly going to need as many wins as they can their final 8 games. They don't play a division game until their final 8 games, and then they play all their 6 division games in the final 8, and then they also add the Bengals and they also add the Eagles in that. So really just kind of a murderer's row. Last year they had kind of a softer schedule.
Hold on, they already have you might have misspoken. You said they also have the Bengals, but the Bengals are in their division, so that's
No, I'm sorry. You're right. No, I'm sorry. I think they had the Chiefs.
Oh,
my bad.
Okay.
They had the Chiefs. My bad. Thank you. They had the Chiefs and the Eagles in their final 8 games. Thanks for the correction on that. So in their final 8 games, last year they had kind of a softer schedule then, but they got to get the wins up front now if they're going to be a playoff team. Certainly are living right. Potentially Justin Herbert can't go. Squeaking out a win against this one would be huge for their playoff chances. I'm still not crazy about the team, but I still think they're very limited. I still think they're one and done if they make it to playoffs like they were last year. But, again, if you get there, maybe anything can happen. Maybe a quarterback would be out for the opposing team again. They can kind of, live right again. But that's the way I see it. Any thoughts on that?
It's just that Pittsburgh could be 3-0 after this weekend, and they'll have beaten Atlanta,
Yep.
a hobbled Kirk Cousins, then Denver with Bo Nix, and then the Chargers without Justin Herbert. I mean, that's going to be a fraudulent 3-0 if they get there. We'll see. But
Yeah.
And this might be a very boring game if you got a backup for the Chargers in there and you're playing against Pittsburgh, who's boring every time they play because they've just been like that for decades. Unless you love, defense and running, and conservative offense, then
certainly the under is very attractive to me right now, especially if Justin Herbert's not playing. Harbaugh loves the run. With Herbert out, he'd certainly be leaning on it more. You'd have to look at that. You have to give the under some serious thought.
Alrighty, moving on to the next one. We've got Denver 0-2 at Tampa Bay 2-0. Denver coming off the loss to Pittsburgh 13-6. Tampa coming off the win over Detroit 20-16.
Tampa Bay legit or not in your eyes?
They're legit.
I do too. I think the same thing. Weather in Tampa, balmy 86, 18% of isolated thunderstorms, 8-mile-an-hour winds from the northeast. I'm going to guess this one here. I'm going to say Tampa 7.5, and I'll put a total on this one of, I'll put 41.5.
Okay. You said 41.5. It opened 40, went down to 39.5. And as for the line, you said 7.5. I said 7.5. It opened 7 and went down to 6.5.
6.5. All right. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I understand that a little bit. Sneaky game, but I would assume the total went down just because I don't know. I mean, maybe they expect Denver to lock in and play some good defense. We'll certainly see. Bo Nix through 2 games, no TDs, 4 interceptions, and a 51 passer rating. So not exactly setting the world on fire. But feel like they're just setting you up right now. Denver's terrible, and the public just floods in on Tampa Bay. But looks like you've got some sharp money moving in on Denver.
Yep. Looks that way.
Yep, absolutely. All right.
I actually can't. I think that's going to be that looks like it's going to be a little bit more competitive than you think at first fly. I feel that way, but I do. Okay, next game is 4:04. We have 2 Monday night games this week, by the way, just in case you already know that. Yeah, I don't like it either.
I hate when they run the Monday night games side by side, and
that's what they're doing
instead of one after the other. I mean, because what are you doing? I mean, people just don't watch ESPN like they used to anymore because they make some bad decisions. And I feel like this is just one more bad decision that they keep making. I'm like, what are you doing?
I'm not sure if it's their decision, though. I bet they have one of those games, but do you think they definitely have both? Or is one going to be on Amazon?
Yeah, well, no. I mean, it's Disney. One's ABC, one's ESPN. Yeah.
Okay.
It's them making the decision to do that. And, I mean, it's not like one's on the NFL Network. They're actually doing this, and it's just bizarre to me. I mean, look, TV's great on Sunday, and you have all the TVs set up, and you split the screens now with YouTube TV and do that. I don't want to split screens on Monday night. I want to watch the sound on both. I want to analyze both and do it. But they didn't poll me this time, so I guess I'll do what I'm told.
Yep. Okay. We will move on to the first of the 4:05 games. There are going to be 2 of these.
Yep.
It's Carolina 0-2 at Las Vegas 1-1. Carolina coming off a loss to the Chargers 26-3, and Vegas coming off a win over Baltimore 26-23.
Obviously in a dome. Big news, obviously, Bryce Young got benched for 36-year-old Andy Dalton. I can't believe he's still in the league. Feels like he's 7 years past his prime, but he's still there. And, Bryce Young, but I mean, they had to do it, right? I mean, because you have a new coach in there. Players are looking to see if they are setting the tone, if he's going to set the tone, because, if the players don't believe in the quarterback anymore, and the coach is not doing anything about it, then it just snowballs there. And, sometimes you have to do that just to keep the locker room intact. Look, color me shocked. I mean, Bryce Young is the size of Kyler Murray, but can't run as fast and not as thick, and he doesn't have as good of an arm. I'm kidding, but color me shocked that it didn't work, and or it's not working. And getting benched 2 games into your second season, first time it's ever happened to a 1-of-1 quarterback, and it looks to me like his time is done, and Carolina's drafting again. Unfortunately, the trade with the Bears is still not over. Bears still have one more pick left next year in the second round. It looks like right now they're probably going to be drafting at the top of the second round because of that. But they have one more pick left to go, and certainly some cap space. But it's just, Carolina has 352 total yards on the season. Bryce Young has an NFL worst 8.9 total QBR, 0 TDs, 3 picks. Just the only quarterback that has a worse QBR than Bryce Young since he's been drafted would be who? Who do you think? Who's your guess?
Zach Wilson.
There you go. There you go.
He's been awful. I'm actually surprised he has been worse than Bryce Young, because I thought Bryce Young has shown me nothing, and Zach Wilson had a game or two where I was like, okay, 180 yards passing, 1 TD, 1 interception. That's pretty great for you. I think this is really good for us. If you're looking at Carolina, and I've already lost on them twice this year, but I'm looking at them this weekend, knowing that they have Andy Dalton coming in helps. It's also possible, if you imagine being the other 21 people on the team, like Adam Thielen, who was running wide open and Young didn't even see him.
Right.
That all those guys are going to feel a big sense of relief that they don't have to carry that guy anymore, and they might they might have subconsciously let up a little bit in the last, the end of last year, beginning of this year, just because what's the point? This guy's not going to, we're not going to win.
Right.
Now they might have some more fight. I think this might be a good thing for potential Carolina bet. Or I could be here next week, sulking about going 0-3 on Carolina this year.
Well, I understand you're glutton for punishment, but you're true to your principles, so I respect that. It's Carolina. When I was right out of college, I went to work for a guy who grew up in Iowa. He was his family, they were pig farmers. So, he was a very direct guy and very, very, very blunt. And he told me, a couple things that I'll never forget. He goes, Phil, do you want people to like you or respect you? He goes, sometimes you just got to punch somebody in the nose. And so I thought that was interesting. The other thing is that, which really pertains to this, he said, it's not the people you fire that make your life miserable. It's the people you don't. And I think that's probably where Dave Canales is right now with Bryce Young. He feels like that it's time to move on, and he's not going to be saddled with this. He's seen the coaches. You've had coaches that have come there that have tried to actually make some things work with Bryce Young, but it's clearly just not working. On the other hand, you've got Gardner Minshew, who looks like an All-American now. He looks like an All-Pro. He looks fantastic. I was surprised. I didn't think he would do as well, certainly one of where my Uncle Phil was wrong, but he and Davante Adams have got quite the connection against Baltimore. Davante Adams had 9 catches for 110 yards and a TD. He looked like the old Davante Adams and looked happy again. So interesting deal. Good luck with your Carolina bet. I don't know that I'll be with you on that one. Oh, we didn't even guess this, or I didn't. With this one, I'll say Las Vegas 7, and I'll put a total on this one of 45.
Okay. Way high on the total, by the way. Carolina. Yeah, it's open 38 down to 37.5.
Wow.
Okay. Point spread, you said 7. I said 7. It opens 7.5. It's down to 7.
Okay. So, fair enough. All right.
Okay. Next game is the second of the 405 games. Miami 1-1 at Seattle 2-0. Miami lost to Buffalo on Thursday Night Football 31-10, and Seattle beat New England 23-20.
Okay, weather in Seattle, not surprisingly, 46% chance of rain, 8 miles per hour wind. Tua was officially placed on the IR today. Not like he's coming back, but at least gives them some decision time to consult with a neurologist, have some time, be thoughtful about this decision. Really hope he chooses to retire, but haven't. Miami also signed Tyler Huntley from the Ravens practice squad actually to their active roster. So that's their backup to Skyler. And then Geno felt like, big jump for him from week 1 to week 2, completing 74% of his throws, made plays inside and outside of structure. Thought he did an extremely good job on that one. My guess on this game, though, is I'm going to say Seattle 7, and I'm going to put a total on this one of, I'll put 41.
Okay. You said 41. So total open 43 down to 42. You said
42 now?
You said Seattle -7?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I said Seattle -5. It opened 6, and it's still 6. So we bookended it.
Okay, you're frozen again. We'll. I feel like that. I just feel like Miami's season. I know it's early; it's week 2, but I feel like Miami's season's done. Now you're back. You there?
All right. Again.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
What do you? Yeah, now I can.
Sorry,
so what do you?
I don't know.
We're gonna have to set up a GoFundMe for Smooth Andy and buy him an Ethernet cable.
We'll see. I mean, the modem is right on the other side of that wall too. It's in the garage. I don't understand why this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you think Miami's done?
Well, yeah, I do. I feel like they're, as much as I don't think the Jets are a playoff team, I think less of Miami. I think their season's done, and I think that Miami's probably the 4th place team in the AFC East. Then I'll go with the Jets. And I mean, I think Jets and New England will be battling it out for that. I felt like New England's a little bit of a surprise. I guess I probably would give the edge to the Jets, but I don't think the Jets are a playoff team, and I'll go that Buffalo's the class of that division and runs away with it. Smooth Andy. Now you're back.
Yeah, I'm here. Jesus.
Right.
Okay, let's keep moving. I don't know. I mean, at some point, my screen's probably just going to mess or something. All right, so. 25. There are 3 425 games this week. First one is Baltimore 0-2 at Dallas 1-1. Baltimore coming off a loss to Vegas 26-23, and Dallas coming off a loss to New Orleans 44-19.
Dome, so obviously no weather. This is an interesting game. I mean, Dallas is desperate. Baltimore has to be desperate. They're 0-2. Since the team's expanded to 14 playoff teams, there have been 32 teams that have been 0-2, and only two of them, 0-2 teams have gone to the playoffs. So total desperation time for Baltimore, but you come off a Dallas team that just got embarrassed at home. Which team will show up should be really interesting game. I'm going to put this one at low. I'll put Dallas favored by 2, and I'll put a total on this one of 45. Smooth Andy, you are frozen once again, man. We're really struggling tonight.
Yeah.
Now you're back. Are you there?
Okay. You said Dallas -2. I said Dallas. Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. You said Dallas -2. I said Dallas -5. It opened pick'em. It's now Baltimore -1.
Yikes.
You said 45 on the total. It opened 47. It's up to 47.5.
Okay. Sounds about right. All right. Baltimore injuries. Wide receiver David Bell dislocated his hip against Jacksonville. Will have to have surgery. It's probably season ending. Tight end, Dallas tight end Jake Ferguson had sprained MCL in his left knee for last game. Not sure that he'll be back for this game or not. Look, it's two teams I thought would take a step back this year. Two teams that I didn't think were playoff teams. I thought that Baltimore would take a step back because they lost too much. They lost Mike McDonald. You and I both high on him. But their defense, they had to replace too much. And the big thing is their offensive line. And now I've come to just about totally despise Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator. I think he has them in bad personnel situations. They're not physical enough on the offensive line. You remember when the days when they had Patrick Ricard as their fullback and they would run and he'd be a lead blocker and he had 0 plays in the game this past weekend. They're up 10 points. They're up 10 points on the Raiders. And you know how many carries that Derrick Henry got in the final 10 minutes? He got one for 5 yards. And you brought him there for a reason, to just hammer people when you're up and start running over people. And what are you doing? I don't get it. It's just, the whole thing is bizarre to me. I'm happy for Mike McDonald, but in my opinion, there should have been one more coordinator that left, and that shouldn't have been his choice after the just awful showing that he did in the playoffs last year, where they probably would have beat the Chiefs, but instead didn't run the ball. It's obviously well documented now, but I feel like they're still, I think Lamar's probably injured, but I don't get it. They allowed Gardner Minshew on defense. They allowed Gardner Minshew to complete 83% of his passes. He's an All-American now, or All-Pro. So I don't get it. I'm out. It just makes me mad looking at this. And Dallas's defense is the same. It's in Texas term, it's all hat, no cattle. They played 3 people. You got 3 stars. Congratulations, Dallas. And that's about all you have. So anyway, you were frozen. Now you're back again, but let's move on.
All right. Next game, San Francisco 1-1 at the LA Rams 0-2. San Francisco coming off the loss to Minnesota 23-7. And the Rams coming off the loss to Arizona 41-10.
Yeah, look, the Rams are you can pretty much take every starter on their team, and they're injured right now. And San Francisco, this was going to be this marquee matchup. You've got Debo, who's going to be out. Debo Samuel's going to be out. You've got Christian McCaffrey, who's still going to be out. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's on the IR. Debo Samuel's going to be out for a couple of weeks with a calf strain. I mean,
what about Kittle? So isn't Kittle out?
Do what?
I said, what about Kittle? Isn't Kittle out?
No, he's going to play. He's going to play.
Okay.
Yep. He was carted off field, but actually came back in the game on Sunday. But Puka Nacua is on the IR. The Rams, to make the situation worse, they sent Cooper Kupp to the IR today. They're without their two top wide receivers. Tyler Higbee's out. I mean, what do you do if you're Matt Stafford? You just have nothing left. So I'm going to put this one. I'll put San Francisco favored by 3. And I'll put a total on this one of 45. Just because I have no idea.
Okay. You said 45 on the total. It's 45.5. You said San Francisco 3. I said San Francisco 5. It opened San Francisco 7. Went up to 7.5.
Wow. Surprised. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on.
Yeah, let's get this finished before this thing explodes. Detroit 1-1 at Arizona 1-1. This is the last of the 425 games. Pardon me. Detroit 1-1 at Arizona 1-1. Detroit lost to Tampa 20-16, and Arizona beat the Rams 41-10. Very impressively too.
Obviously, a dome. I can't figure Detroit out. Detroit is a power running team, but apparently Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, hasn't figured that out yet. He forgot that from in the offseason. He literally made Jared Goff throw 55 times against Tampa Bay. Like, just, dude, what in the F are you doing? I'm like, that's just insane. I mean, what are you doing? Arizona, I'm gonna put Arizona favored. I'll put Arizona 3.5, and I'm gonna put a total on this one of I'm gonna put 49.
Okay, well, your total 49. It opened 51, went up to 52, so you're a little below.
Yeah,
you got the wrong team favored. You said Arizona 3.5. I said Detroit 3.5. It opened Detroit 2.5. It's up to 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a little surprised it's that. Now that I look at it, I am a little surprised it's that high. But I think Detroit's definitely the better.
I think people forget about Arizona. I think Detroit's the hot team right now. People forget about Arizona. I'm on the Kyler train right now.
How many players can you name on their offensive line or their defense, or I mean, he's a joystick. He's a video game, but the rest of the team, I think, is what worries me a little bit. Like how much they have in terms of premium talent, especially on defense.
Yeah, well, their defensive line's trash, right? Their offensive line's pretty good, but I talked to someone in the league yesterday, and he told me about Arizona, that their 3 interior linemen, center guard, are really beat up from the game with the Rams, and that they couldn't walk yesterday. So that could be why the line is what it is. And, if I'll find out the deal, I mean, injuries happen and people are all beat up on Mondays. I'll get word later on in the week from this person to see what those guys are actually like. But, could be an opportunity for Detroit. But if they're back healthy, I might be on Arizona. It just depends on how those people are doing. But, again, the information I've got is that they're really beat up on the offensive line right now. So, we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Next game is the 8:20 game on Sunday night. Kansas City 2-0 at Atlanta 1-1. Kansas City coming off the win over Cincinnati 26-25. Atlanta coming off the win over Philadelphia 22-21.
Okay, again, a dome, no weather situation going on there. I'm going to put Kansas City favored by 3.5, and I'll put a total at 43.
Okay. Total, you said 43. It opened 45.5. It's up to 46.5.
Wow. Okay.
Said Kansas City minus 3.5. I said Kansas City minus 6.5. Of course, I did my line picking before last night, so the only Atlanta I had seen it was against Philadelphia, or it was against Pittsburgh rather.
Right.
The line actually opened 4, and it is now at 4.5. So really, sort of a dead number there, but we'll see where it takes.
4.5. Okay. Yeah, not surprised. I mean, look, Kansas City's going to control that line just because they're Kansas City, right? Patrick Mahomes hasn't looked right this year. He had his statistically worst game of his entire NFL career last weekend. I mean, as far as Kansas City went 1 for 8 on third downs against Cincinnati. Cincinnati outplayed them the whole time, and obviously, turnovers, some tough decisions, but Cincinnati is definitely Kansas City's kryptonite. Kansas City definitely stepped up. You see the most progress between teams from week 1 to week 2. Cincinnati certainly jumped up. I wasn't as concerned about them after I was on week 1. Week 1, I thought, good gosh, this is bad. They can't stop the run, can't run the ball. They did both against Kansas City, and that's a good Kansas City defense. So I was very impressed. Thought they did a great job. Kansas City, I think their tackles are really liabilities for them right now. Left tackle's tough for them. I think Trey Henderson's a huge liability at left tackle. If you're going to beat Kansas City, you have to have elite pass rushers. Trey Hendrickson for the Cincinnati Bengals just really just wreaked havoc over there. So I'm interested to see how Kansas City does. I mean, Kansas City always puts it together, but I just didn't think they played particularly well, and they're a pass interference call and a toe away from being 0-2 potentially, so I mean, it's you can certainly make the case for that. So we'll see. I mean, they always seem to get it together. The big news for them is that obviously Isaiah Pacheco with a fractured fibula placed on IR, minimum 4 weeks, probably looking at 6 to 8. Samaje Perine, they're probably going to have to go out and get somebody else because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on IR. I know that they just signed Kareem Hunt today to their practice squad. So
That's shocking.
Yeah. So
not because Kareem Hunt's not a good player, but because
I know
they released him.
Yeah,
because he lied about hitting a woman. Yeah,
I know.
Can't believe it. Yeah,
I know. Desperate times, like things get forgiven, right?
I heard somebody say Jerick McKinnon's out there, and that seemed like it would have made a lot more sense because he's been on the roster, I think, the last 2 years. So I don't know why they would go for Hunt. But Hunt's better than McKinnon, I think, but still.
Well, look, man, it's wins and losses, and they understand. I certainly understand what you're saying. I was kind of taken aback myself. Hollywood Brown's out, shoulder surgery, possibly out for the entire year. I think we kind of knew that. You're a big Kansas City fan. I know you want to take this opportunity to wish Patrick Mahomes' 29th birthday, which is today. So I'll just let you go ahead and have the floor.
Happy birthday, Patrick.
There you go.
I do like this kid. I forget which back school he played at, but there's a kid named Steele who's been playing. He's listed officially as a fullback with Kansas City, and he gets a couple carries every game, does a little blocking, maybe catches the ball out of the backfield. He was a really good player in the MAC, and he just looks like the last thing you'd expect to see it behind, in the backfield. He's a white guy. He's got like long blonde hair coming out from under his helmet. And he's like the last thing you expect to see a running back in the NFL look like. No, I don't want to get into the race thing, but it's more just you look at him and he looks like more like Trevor Lawrence, except not that tall, in terms of like he just doesn't look like what you see in the backfield normally.
Yeah,
looks
he's
like
a lot thicker than Trevor Lawrence as well, but
a lot shorter. Yeah, but he's looked really good, and they were talking about him all through training camp, so I think he might maybe get the first bite at the apple.
He had a big fumble in last game against Cincinnati, so. Not surprisingly, they went looking for someone else as well.
I didn't know that. I actually missed part of the game because I had to go out to dinner. But so
that's just
I didn't.
Where's your dedication? I love talking about Smooth Andy now when he's frozen, so I can just okay, he's back now. I have to be quiet. So
let's get moving. All right, next game is one of the Monday night games. It is Washington 1-1 at Cincinnati 0-2. Washington coming off the win over the Giants 2018. Cincinnati coming off the loss to Kansas City 26-25.
Yeah, as far as injury reports, Jamar Chase, his ankles day to day, so hopefully get him back. Some good news on T. Higgins on the hamstring. Zach Taylor said today that he's headed in a good direction to return. So hopefully he can. Would like to see Burrow with all his weapons. Burrow looked like a better quarterback this past weekend. The wrist seemed to be a forgotten thing. I don't know if they shot it up or something before the game, but he looked like a man on fire again. Looked like the real deal. I'm going to put Cincinnati at 7. And I'll put a total on this one of 43.
Okay. Total 43. It opened 49.
Wow.
I guess they're expecting Cincinnati to just put up a huge number on Washington.
Could be. Washington's secondary is just trash. So yeah. I mean, if Giants scored 3 touchdowns. If the Giants scored 3 touchdowns, then the Bengals should be able to do that much. And it was at Washington, so this one's on the road. So yeah, should be a get right game for Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's not often you see a 0-2 team as a set more than a touchdown favorite. We'll get to that here now. You said -7 for Cincinnati. I said -6. It opened 8.5, and it came down to 8.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Probably not much more to say about that one.
Not much.
Let's finish before this thing explodes. Jacksonville 0-2 at Buffalo 2-0. Jacksonville coming off the loss to Cleveland 18-13. Buffalo coming off a win over Miami on Thursday Night Football last week, 31-10. So Buffalo on like 10 days rest.
Yeah, it's obviously a massive advantage, not necessarily that they need it the way Jacksonville's playing. Weather 64 degrees, 25% chance of rain showers, winds 5 miles an hour from the southeast. I'm going to guess that Buffalo is favored by, I'm going to say 6.5, and I'm going to go a total of I'll go a total of 47.
Okay, you said 47. Total opened 45.5 and went up to 46.5. You said Buffalo -6.5. I said 7.5. It opened 6, and it's still 6. Last I checked.
Still 6. Yeah. Okay. Look, man, Trevor Lawrence has now lost 7 in a row. I'm beginning to think that the guy that I said was a can't miss prospect might be a miss. I mean, I don't understand it. You know, I don't think that I'm not convinced that Doug Peterson's the right coach. You know, I think he's obviously better than Urban Meyer. I don't know. I mean, you're Clemson guy. He's a Clemson guy. What do you think of? I mean, you know, we're going to spend some time on Buffalo a little bit, but what do you think of the situation in Jacksonville? Do you think it's Trevor? Do you think it's Doug Peterson? Do you think it's a combination? Do you think it's just Jacksonville?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I honestly don't know. I usually I watch Red Zone, so I just get bits and pieces of watching Trevor. I don't get to see the whole game all the way through.
Yeah.
Sometimes he puts the ball right where it should be. I don't see him. I mean, it's not like he looks like Bryce Young or anything out there. You know, it's just like I can't tell if it's him or it's his coaches or if it's his teammates. Like maybe the rest of the players aren't that good, or I don't know. They do have, you know, a few big names, but I don't know. I guess they're going to need Brian Thomas to step up because, you know, losing Ridley, you know, they need that rookie to grow up fast, I think, so they can have a second option with what's his name, Christian Kirk,
Yeah.
and not having Ingram, the tight end, getting, you know, called out for, you know, being injured last week. I mean, he's Trevor's security blanket, so that's part of it probably as well.
Sure.
So I don't know. I'm rooting for him. I think he's got all the tools. Maybe he's dumb. I don't know, but I haven't heard that, so I'm not sure.
I don't know that he is. I think that people just see that, you know, he's got got the long hair like you talked about earlier. He looks kind of California cool, you know. It just doesn't seem like he has the fire sometimes. I mean, and maybe that's what I want him to have. I want him to be pissed like, you know, Tom Brady was, like Patrick Mahomes gets, and, you know, to show some fire. And he's just not that guy. And, you know, you need a quarterback who's verbal, and that's a leader. And, you know, I don't see it, but it's an interesting deal. But let's it's an interesting question. I think we'll have an answer to that question. I think you and I'll have an answer to that question by Thanksgiving. You know, I think you and I'll be able to make a decision on Trevor, Doug Peterson. You will have enough data for this year to make a call and say it's not working or what's happening. And I don't know. I mean, the guy was successful everywhere, you know, and then just come to the NFL and, you know, just seem like this can't miss prospect. I mean, it's not like Bryce Young. Bryce Young started in California, you know, was on a powerhouse team, then went to Alabama, was on a powerhouse team. He was never asked to carry the team. And now he's in Carolina. He's asked to carry the team, and he can't carry that team. I mean, it's just like, you know, certain quarterbacks get to a certain level, you know, like Tim Tebow got to a certain level, and he got to, you know, NFL, and that was his limit, right? And, you know, I'm not ready to say that about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's a big kid, big arm, you know, the whole thing's kind of a head scratcher. But, you know, I'll get off that. But going back to Buffalo, Buffalo is 9-2 since new offensive coordinator Joe Brady took over. His tight ends are excellent. Finally has a running game. I just, you know, star running back and Cook. I like Buffalo. I mean, maybe it was just because they played Miami. Maybe Miami's not that good. I don't know. They certainly didn't look good against Buffalo. I'm convincing myself that Buffalo is good right now. Are they good? Is it just am I convincing myself just because, you know, you've put one up against the other, and they had no choice but to look good against Miami, or are they actually good? What are your thoughts?
I think they're good, but I just don't think they're great. I could be completely wrong on that. I just think they're a 10-7, 11-6 team, probably.
Yeah.
Which is good enough. And then you got a puncher's chance in the playoffs, and we'll see.
Yeah, Josh Allen's just a beast, man. I mean, he's just an absolute beast. I thought he made really good decisions with the ball. He's not trying to throw it all himself, but I mean, he's still this wild stallion that's going to run sometimes and do that. But I thought he made really good decisions. I just like what Joe Brady's done. Joe Brady has unlike what's happening with Detroit, where they're asking Jared Goff to throw it 55 times. I mean, Josh Allen only threw it 16 times against Miami. I mean, and it's like the same thing's happening with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh with Justin Herbert. It's like, hey, we're not going to ask you to carry the team. We're going to have a running game, and we're going to run the ball and be successful and take it all off your back. I mean, it kind of worries me for Jared Goff and worries me for Detroit, but I love the groove that Buffalo's in right now. I love where they're headed, and I think they're going to run away with AFC East. But one last comment. Somebody said that Smooth Andy, they're crushing you. You look totally fine now, but they're saying that Smooth Andy has AOL dial-up for his internet.
But I will say, the guy said he's still one of the best, even with the slow internet.
Send your complaints to AT&T, folks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So
maybe you need to go out and get that T-Mobile streaming cellular service or whatever that thing.
Before we wrap up, what team is equivalent to Smooth Andy's internet right now? I think that's a good way to.
That'd be the Giants.
Giants.
Carolina.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Matt, I think we're done, man. I think we've covered it all.
Awesome. Well, I guess before we wrap up, based on the first 2 weeks, feels like in the past you guys have some data. You can kind of make more informed guesses on some of these teams. Or what team right now are you like, this team has a real shot to win the Super Bowl?
What do you think, Smooth Andy?
You mean unexpected team, probably.
Yeah,
right?
well, I don't know. I think you just say, hey, what based on the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Kansas City, obviously, and you could throw Buffalo in there. I don't think Seattle's a threat. I'm looking at 2-0 teams. I'm just going through them on the board here. Tampa, maybe. I'm not quite there yet, but they've looked really good. And New Orleans, same thing, but I'm a little more skeptical that New Orleans is not quite as good as we think they are right now, but we'll see. But they were just gangbusters first 2 weeks. First one was Carolina, but
yeah,
what they did to Dallas this weekend was completely unexpected. So
look, I picked Atlanta to be the number 1 seed. I think that Kirk Cousins looked dramatically better than he did last week. I think that more chemistry they get. Didn't really get to throw much in the offseason because of his Achilles. He's still kind of working himself into it. I think that they've got be interesting to see how they come along. Man, I love Cincinnati. I thought that, for an 0-2 team, I know that the odds are against them, but, one of the 2 teams out of the 32 teams that actually made the playoffs who were 0-2 was Cincinnati. They've done it before. They can do it again. Joe Burrow looked great. I thought that, when they get, the Jamar Chase mess settled down, get T. Higgins back, I'm not worried about them anymore. They looked good, and they did it against a team that has a top 5 defense in Kansas City. So I thought they looked good. I like Minnesota. I think they're a really good story. I'm not sure that they're that team. If Detroit can ever figure out that they're actually Ben Johnson can figure out they're actually a power running team instead of a Jared Goff throwing the ball 55 miles an hour or 55 times a game, that's different. Man, I would love to see Arizona in the playoffs. I think they're going. I think they would be. I think they would be nasty in the playoffs. I'd be excited about them. So I don't know. There's several teams that I'd be excited about. I think that I think the Chargers will probably split a game with Kansas City this year. And I think that Chargers will probably make the playoffs this year. The way I looked at it today, I was looking at possible playoff teams. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they're a year away from getting their roster right to really challenge Kansas City for that division. But I love the direction Harbaugh does. He fixes it every year. I mean, it's no surprise. I mean, everywhere he's gone, he fixes it, and the team all of a sudden becomes relevant. It's not by accident. So, I love those teams. I think there's going to be some really good playoff games. Cowboys fans, you're not going to playoff. Sorry, you're not going. You're again. I don't believe in you, and I'll stand by what I said in our preseason breakdown of each division. I thought that the Cowboys could potentially be done by Thanksgiving, and I'll stand by it.
Great. I'm sure Smooth Andy likes to hear that, given he's not a huge Mike McCarthy fan in his own right. So, anyways, any final thoughts? It's been a pretty long show, but a lot of good information. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. As always, I think this show's done pretty good numbers as far as viewers compared to the rest of the Tuesday shows we've done since we've started doing this. So thanks again for joining us. And Uncle Phil, Smooth Andy, take us away.
Smooth Andy, any parting thoughts?
I don't want to push this internet. So just you say something.
All right. For Matt, who hosts and produces the show, for Smooth Andy, who sometimes with us and sometimes not during the show, but has recovered nicely here at the end, finished strong. That's the way we like to see teams finish. I'm Uncle Phil. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. You have a choice to what you're listening to tonight, and we appreciate you tuning into us. Always like and follow us on social media. Please like and follow and subscribe on YouTube if you enjoy this content. And guys, let's have a better week this week. As always, guys, let's roll.